And I want to say good day to everyone. Thank you for joining me here, Maximum Impact with Jay Cameron. And this topic is one I know that a lot of people are interested in because I hear so many people talking about how they want to go travel, but not only travel, but to invest and to do business in different parts of Africa. So what I'm going to share with you today are some of the hard lessons that I've learned. Hard lessons, because even with all of the success and everything, there have been some hard lessons that have come along with this territory. And I want to share this with you so that you would have the ability to not make these mistakes. This thing is bothering me right now. I'm saying, okay, what's going on behind me? All right, there we go. All right, there we go. I'll tell you something. There's something when you're doing this thing, you're like, you're looking. I'm like, ah. All right. So with that though, when you talk about traveling and doing business abroad, one of the biggest mistakes that I watch people make is they go in green. They go in green. They go in with the expectation, the anticipation of these different cultures respecting their Americanness or their UK-ness or their Canadian-ness. And a lot of people get in for a rude awakening because the cultures around the world are very, very different. So when I decided I was going to go into business and into do business in foreign countries, I didn't have any training. I didn't go to school to do business in another country. And honestly, I don't even think there's a school that can train you on this, thoroughly, because there's always some sort of nuance or some sort of new thing that comes about that you're shocked with. You're like, oh, good God Almighty. As a matter of fact, I was having a conversation with Governor Donald Duke in Nigeria, and he told me, we were just chopping it up, and he was putting me on game, and he said, listen, he said, when you come over here, do business in Lagos for the shock of it all, for the shock. And he said, shock. And I was like, I'll never forget when he said it, because it was like, whoa, he really place an emphasis on it, because I guess in reality, for his level of success in Nigeria, he's had to deal with a lot of foolishness. So anyway, so with that though, even with all of that said, it has not been a deterrent for me. And the reason why it has not been a deterrent for me is because I see the Chinese all throughout Africa. I see the Lebanese all throughout Africa. I see the Indians all throughout Africa. I see Europeans all throughout Africa. But on many levels, I don't see people who, like me, who are part of the American African diaspora on the continent of Africa doing business. Although we do have people doing business like Judah of a Jerk Soul and so many other people who are doing business on the continent. For a lot of people, they become afraid or they have their first hiccup and they run back to the U.S. or whatever. I've seen many scenarios where if people are not prepared for certain things, then that rude awakening comes. And when the rude awakening comes, now they're like, oh, I got to get out of here. I got to go or whatever. Now, let me walk it down to you, because I know that's what you're watching and that's what you want to be able to see. First thing is this: you need to have a thick skin. If you don't have a thick skin, then, this might not be the thing for you. You have to have a level of patience. You have to have a level of endurance. You have to have a level of street smarts. There are just certain things that, you've been trained for. Many of us have been trained for, I should say, in America. It's just that we have to bring that same vibe and that same drive wherever we do international business, whether it's Africa, South America, Asia, Europe, wherever. You have to understand that the systems are just different from how things operate in America. And you also want to be prepared to invest on the front end. So before I do one of my tours, and just so for those who don't know, I do tours to different parts of Africa and the African diaspora. What I do, I go and I invest in the tour before I even do the first tour. So I might be $10, $15, maybe $20,000 into a tour before I bring the first person, because I want to make sure that everything has been walked through. We have the relationships established. I've already watched the people mess up on me and give them the opportunity to correct it, or I've pivoted and gone somewhere else before I bring the first person. And so that's one of the things I did before I did my first tour to Ghana, or second tour to Ghana, I should say, because I'll tell you a little bit about the first tour in a second. But second tour to Ghana, one of the things I did was I had to vet the transportation companies. And so I reached out to some of the staff members And I said, hey, listen, I said, I wanna do the tour with the transportation company before I take anyone on the tour. I want to see how they operate. I want to see if they show up on time. I want to see what the condition of the vehicles are. And so we had to go through a couple of companies because, one company we were working with started off great, but then the quality of the vehicle started to go down as he became more comfortable with us, and the rates started to change. Oh, the rate's different today. This is, so you go through those things. But guess what? If I had tried to do that from the U.S., now I'm all the way out there. Now they can play all kinds of games. And that's the thing that you got to realize is that people will play a passive aggressive game if they know that you're not there in their face, or they know that you don't have other options. Now the price doubles. All of a sudden, now it went from 500 CDs to 1,000 CDs overnight just because they felt as though they wanted to change the price. Now, the average entrepreneur who's not prepared for that gets in their feelings, and you gonna get in your feelings. But it's like, okay, well, if that's the game you want to play, all right, you got me right here, right now. But no, next time you're gonna lose, because a lot of times what ends up happening, people in business, they play for survival. In the international settings, they play for survival for that day. They're not thinking about the long money. They're looking at, how can I make it today? And that's it. I'm not concerned about tomorrow and the business relationship and all of that. I'm just trying to survive for today. And that goes back to a lot of the culture and how the culture has been conditioned. And if the culture is thinking like that and operating like that, then, but if you don't know that, you're going and thinking, hey, if we make a contract, we make an agreement, it's going to stick. If these people recognize that you are green like that, or you don't have options, then they're going to stick it to you. And so, but you got to be prepared. Now, I'm circle back to my first tour, but in a second, someone turned me on to, when I was in Tanzania. I was turned on to one of the investors who does one of the tent camps out there, and he's an Indian guy. And we had a long conversation. He said, Jay, he said, it's tough. He said, it's tough. He said, but if you can hang in there long enough, he said, there's a lot of money in tourism on the continent of Africa. So I'm taking it from someone who's, he's paid his dues, he's paying his dues, but also I'm looking at it from a cultural standpoint. And he's telling me, this is an Indian guy, and Indians, especially in East Africa, find a level of success. So I'm listening to him. I'm saying, okay, well, hey, put me on game. He considered me to want to be. He was pitching me to be an investor. So he said, well, here's the deal. This is what we're doing and what we want to do, and this is what I went through to get there. And so I listen. I take all these little nuggets along the way. I have no discrimination. I listen to what people have to say because I'm playing to win. So when you play to win, you don't get in your feelings. Oh man, them Indians over here taking over everything. Okay, I peeped that. Okay, well if that's the case, what am I going to do about it? Well, I'm gonna get in the game too, and I'm gonna be a part of this whole thing too. And so I see what's going on. Let me get in and then create opportunities for other people like me and others on the continent of Africa. That's how what I can do in order to offset some of the takeover by Asia when it comes to the continent of Africa. When circling back to the first tour, one of the mistakes I made on my very first tour was I just kind of subcontracted it, if you will. You say, okay, let me go subcontract it to this particular company, and this is how we're going to do it. Everything went well. The tour was actually a great tour, but it didn't have my vibe. It didn't have what I have on the tours now, because I was thinking with the Western mind, with the American mind, let me get in, contract the company, and then I just move on to the next thing, and then blah, blah, blah. Now, when you're thinking about business, you want to scale, you want to go up, and you want to do all those different things. But if you don't have the right company representing your brand, then what ends up happening is that impacts you, and it impacts your long-term experience. So when I recognized, I said, if I don't put my brand on this, and if this is something I begin to establish along the way, then it leaves the door open for more exploitation of me. So what I decided to do at that point is I said, now I'm going to create the maximum impact brand, our experience, curate it, write it, make sure that it's all in place, everything that we need. Let's make sure that all of this stuff is in place, because that's how you ensure that the quality of what you're bringing is intact. And so it's a system that I have in place in every location that we go to. But if I didn't come and put my feet on the ground and spend time here, and I mean, I'm just saying, there's different places all throughout the continent. If I don't do that, and I try to be cheap with it, or I try to be lazy with it, then I don't get to the level of what we've been able to get to in such a short period of time. Now, here's some other things. I talked about being prepared to invest on the front end. If you're not willing to go through and spend time on the ground with whatever you're doing, a restaurant, or whatever, if you're not willing to go in and put that money in on the front end, you're not going to make it on the back end, because or you're going to spend. The learning curve is going to happen with your clients, and it doesn't necessarily have to happen like that. Here's some other things to hold on to. Once you make a deposit, that money is spent the next day. So you're like, well, I want to get a refund, and you can hang that up. So you really want to gauge the level of your deposits before the product is delivered. Trying to go get money back and all of that, you might as well, once you put it out there, that money's gone. And if you're like, I'm going to go to court and all of that, you can, but you're going to spend so much time trying to recoup it, and then you have to determine if it's going to be worth it. So try to keep your deposits low. A lot of times what they do, because they're ready to spend money up front, I want to get 70% up front. I'm like, I'm not giving you 70% up front. You haven't finished the job. What are you thinking about? The best we might do maybe 30%. And if it's a first-time relationship, then, we'll really see where we're going with this. But you have to be prepared for that and to have other alternatives, because some people get it. Some people don't. And you got to figure out those who get it and those who can deliver the product. When they come with the excuses, hey, boss, man, I this happened and this happened, this, that, and the other. You got to be prepared for that, because if you're not prepared for it, you will find yourself disappointed, frustrated, upset, mad, ready to go back to America and go right back into the plantation and talking about I'm going to get a job. So now, nothing wrong with that if that's what you got to do, but just saying that these are things that can help you avoid getting into a bad situation. Another thing I encourage you to do, keep your cash flow from the UK or America or Canada. Keep your cash flow coming in. If you really want to be successful in business, it's all about cash flow. When I say this, meaning having the resources coming in while you're trying to build. So many people deplete their resources while they're trying to do it, and then the next thing you know, they run out of money, and guess where they have to go? Got to go back to wherever they came from to try to figure out, regroup and all of that. And they got to deal with the naysayers. Oh, see, I knew you weren't going to make it over here. I knew it was too much. And they scam, and these scammers, they didn't like you, did they? Because they told us they didn't like us because they sold you in slavery. That's what you're going to do. All of that you got to deal with. But if you plan properly and you prepare properly, there's a fortune at the end of the rainbow. There's a fortune at the end of the rainbow. Don't you understand? If all the Asians, Europeans, and everybody else coming, they have figured out there's a fortune in all these third world countries, as they call them. And I tell you, if you're using third world country in 2022, and that's the terminology that you're using, then your vocabulary is dated. And go research what third world country means. It's not what you think it means. So anyway, so once you make a deposit, understand the money spent. And so you protect your investment on the front end based upon the level of investment. The other thing you want to do is make sure you see the product that you're getting. If somebody's going to promise you something, see the product. See what's going on. Have an honest, straight up conversation. Say, hey, listen, I'm not coming here. So what happens if, you may want to ask, so what happens if you don't deliver what you say you're going to do? Am I going to get a refund? Are you going to spend this money right now? The minute you leave, are you going to go spend my money? Those are like real conversations. That puts people on game. Say, oh, you know what time it is up in here. And have that conversation. And then you find out, and you're going to have to risk. You're going to have to assume some risk. The reality is, if you're not ready to assume some risk, then you don't need to do it. That's the deal. The next thing you got to understand, these hard lessons, many people expect you to pay for their mistake, their poor service, or an item that you did not request. And when I say that, meaning if they make the mistake, they will expect you to pay for it. So in other words, I made a mistake, sorry. I never forget, we were at a restaurant in Accra, Ghana, and everybody else got their food, and the people who wanted salads had to wait an hour for the salad. So the people, by the time the hour went by, they're like, I don't even want this anymore. So the young lady, the waitress, came out, no, you have to take it. You have to take it, or else I'm going to have to pay for it. And they're like, well, I guess you're going to have to pay for it, because I'm not going to sit here for an hour and wait for you to bring me a salad. And that was just a reality. And so, like, if that's the system that that particular restaurant has, that's on them. But unfortunately, her mindset was to think that, okay, no, you still should take this, although it's been an hour later, and you're no longer hungry, or they'll bring out the wrong food. I remember I was at a spot in Kumasi, and I had ordered a margarita pizza, but on the menu it said tomatoes. So it didn't say tomato sauce, it said tomatoes on the pizza. So the thing comes out, and I look, I said, it's a cheese pizza. And so I went to the young lady, I said, hey, I said, right on the menu it says tomato. I said, I want tomato on the pizza. So she goes and she looks under the sauce and finds one little, like a tomato skin, like that was in the sauce. That's a part of the sauce. She said, see right there, that's the tomato. I looked, I said, oh no. I said, that's all, oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 no. I said, oh no. I said, we will not be doing this right here. So then the manager comes over. The manager said, I got you. I took it in the back and got tomatoes and put it on the margarita. But the fact that she was even thinking to herself to even look to try to say that spoke to, some of that's customer service or whatever it is. And then this other spot in Accra called Potbelly in East Legon, I think they must have the worst customer service on the planet. You would wait for an hour. I remember one night, I used to take my groups there. I don't take them there anymore. I remember one night we sat there and waited for the food for an hour. Then on top of that, waited for the check almost another hour. And I sat there, I said to myself, I said, now this is how money walks out of this place. I said, because the waiter came back, he forgot all the orders. What did you order? What did you order? I said, you asking people what they ordered. And hope that they, tell the truth. So after a while, after sitting there an hour and almost 2 hours, I said, come on, let's go. And we just left. Because and that was just unfortunate at that point in time, because that particular establishment, one, is losing money like that. But then the last time I finally went, the guy was so rude, and I had to ask him. The manager was so rude. I said, if I were European, would you talk to me like this? I said, because how you coming at me is like unreal. And then he was like, oh, he was taken aback when I hit him with that one. And he was like, no. Then he figured out what all I was doing. Then was all apologetic. And I said, never again. Never again. Then I tried. They were like, oh, you got to forgive and be nice. I said, I'm going to go back there one last time. Because the owner wasn't trying to communicate and all of that. So I said, if he doesn't care about his business, then I don't care. So I went back one last time. And this is I'll never go back to this place again. So I'm sitting there and I order the food. And this is just hard lessons. I order the food, and so I guess about 45 minutes goes by. And the waitress, she brings out the water and then the food with the other person I was eating with. And so I was like, hey, what's up with the food? She was like, oh, no, you did not order the food. You didn't. We're like, so needless to say, that put Potbelly on the cancel list. Potbelly, East Legon, Accra. You're going to waste a lot of time if you go there. They party up, they get dancing, everything, birthday party. That's like the whole thing comes up, they dance and everything. So just bring the food out, let the people, So anyway, other things. I'm gonna do a video on Precision Air in Tanzania, and in my opinion, they're the worst airline in Africa. And I'll explain why on that particular video, how they muffed a situation for some of my guests and didn't want to own it. They promised, they didn't do it. And this is a hard lesson because it ended up costing me money. And so because of that, they didn't want to own their mistake. And that's what you got to realize. They want to get you in. They want you to spend the money quickly. They want to put urgency on it, but they don't want to own the mistakes. Now, there's some places that have owned the mistakes. So that's with Precision Air in Tanzania. I'm going to run that whole thing down for everybody. And for any tour operators or anything like that, in my opinion, if you go down that road with Precision Air, you are risking a lot of money. They have a little raggedy airport there in Arusha. It's a really jackleg kind of situation. And I'll explain it in detail. I had to email proof of all of the chronology of the whole thing. It's a really, really ugly situation with Precision Air in Tanzania. But that was a hard lesson. But does that mean I'm not going to go to Tanzania again? No, it doesn't mean I'm not going to go to Tanzania again. It's you learn how to adjust your system as a result of that. So I call anytime you lose money in a venture or something like that, experience tuition. And some people, because so many of us come from a landscape of doing things on the cheap or cheap. We don't realize that sometimes in business, you're going to lose money in order to make money. And if you're not if you are not prepared for that type of risk, then what ends up happening is that you become discouraged and you can't see the long game. You're playing for the short game, or you just didn't allocate your resources properly to where you would have enough financial momentum to keep going. And that's why talks like this are so important. If you're going to do something and you're going to be a part of something, it's important to have this type of conversation on the front end, or else you'll end up losing money and frustrated and back doing the thing that you were trying to get away from. So, the other thing when it comes to rent, people will rent to you and they'll promise you. Now, again, we come with our Western mind. We sign a lease, we can go to rent court, and we can go say all these different things. You go to these different countries, unless you go into a particular mindset of people, if you get the low-level mindset of person, they're going to throw you in some place, they're going to bait and switch you, they're going to try to charge you, they're going to do all kind of things, and once you give them that money's gone. Unless you really, really are dealing with somebody who's about their business or someone who's trying to protect their reputation, that money is gone. The minute you give it to them, they have gone to the wherever and it is spent. And that's your rent money, and depending if it's a system that wants you to pay for the whole year or whatever, if you give them $20,000 up front, you can end up losing all of that money or fighting for it and all of that. And a lot of times they count on, you having to fight for it. That's why I'm not paying anybody a whole year's worth of rent up front. I don't do that anywhere. I'm not giving you a whole year. What if you got a jackleg situation? Jackleg is bogus, bootleg, random, ghetto. I'm trying to find a term that everybody can kind of relate to. I'm not giving you all of that money up front just for you to be able to be, it's another word I'm going to use, but I'm not going to use it. I'm not doing that. So the most I'll do is 3 months. And that gives, okay, I'm willing to put 3 months on the line. I can tolerate something for 3 months if it's not good. One good thing to do is use like Airbnbs. It may be more expensive for you to do it like that, but you have accountability. And when you have accountability, then that gives you comfort. But again, people make these moves trying to be cheap. I can't tell you how many people I'm moving, I'm trying to be cheap, and I found a good deal. I'm already hearing American thinking. I'm hearing that you're about to get yourself caught up into something. You're trying to go over there and do this on the cheap, about to get burned. And sure enough, the water didn't come on. The water was out for 2 days. Electricity was out, and this happened and the other. And I ain't got no internet. Then they get online and start talking about how they can't get no snacks and all the stuff is bad. They didn't do their homework on the front end and understand the culture and how to navigate around the culture. Like where I stay in Accra, I don't have any problems but now that didn't mean it just came about. It was like had to search. While my condo was being built, I had to search, and finally had to settle on a place. What I like that gets me what I need. It has great internet, and it's a good location. And I paid what I paid for it because that's what I need. I work hard, so I want to live a particular way, and that's how I do it. Doing business, hard lesson. I'm going to also show the video when I was on the Africa World Airlines, where I was assaulted on the Africa World Airlines. That's gonna be something to see. I got it on tape. Also, when I went to the Obudu cattle ranch in Nigeria, and that whole situation, and I had to get real, aggressive there, because that place is that place, they let that place go downhill. I mean, run down. So if you're talking about going to the Obudu cattle ranch in Nigeria, don't. If you do, you're going to be in for a surprise if you stay where I stayed. So I had the video for all of that too. The other thing, you can't lose your street sense. I mean, if you don't have it, then you're going to develop it by the time you leave these places. You also have the ability to have the ability to problem solve. I'm constantly problem solving, constantly. I mean, we're running tours in one, two, how many countries? One, two, three, four, five, like 8 countries. So you got to have the ability to problem solve. Some people say, well, why don't you do tours to this country or tours to that country? Because I know my clientele. I know the mindset. I'm creating experiences so people can understand that all African countries aren't the same. So I can tell you, when people talk about Africa, they normally just think of one country, but it's 54 different countries with thousands of different cultures. So what I do is I go and I spend time and I say, well, okay, is this a cultural fit for my culture? Is this going to work? Because all cultures are not going to work. Some places it's just not going to jive. I recognize that and I say, okay, so this is what we're going to do. That's a lesson that I've learned. But you have to have the ability to problem solve. You have to be able to think on your feet quickly. And again, this comes from spending time there. If you don't go spend time, then what ends up happening is you try to do it lazy style and you get burned. And that's real. You must understand the mindset of the different cultures. Zulu culture is very different from Timone culture. It's very different from Maasai culture. Very different from Yoruba culture. Very different from Ewe culture. Not the same cultures. It's just that simple. But when you think about it, oh, that's Africa. And no, very different cultures, very different histories, very different philosophies, very different. And spending time and getting to know will help you to succeed as well. Like I said, you got to be quick on your feet. Now, some of my pet peeves in the hard lessons is that when I'm sitting there, so I have my representatives and all of that, and I'm sitting there at the table, and so you might have people from, I'm not saying Tanzania, this happened in Tanzania. So you have about 4 or 5 people sitting at the table. Everybody speaks English. So it's not like we have a language barrier here. Everybody speaks English and speaks fluent English. So it's not like we're having a challenge. But then we're sitting at the table doing a negotiation, and then everybody else starts speaking in whatever local language they're speaking in. And I'm sitting there like, so my street antenna goes up like, okay, y'all out here working a deal among yourselves to try to come back and give me a price. So now I'm about to lower my price even more because y'all sitting here at the table trying to cut a deal and speaking in your own language or whatever. I don't know what you're saying. Now, this is culture. So I already know at that point, okay, whatever they come back with, the person who worked out a little side cut for him and side cut over here. And then I said, oh, well, I don't know. I think I'll try something different. And they're like, wait, what's going on here? Oh, man, So then I'm able to leverage that a little bit more just because of the, just sitting there talking in the language. And it may be just normal, just as far as not even thinking about it. But what I'm going to start doing now is like, hey, speaking English. Don't sit there and speak in your language. If you want to have this conversation, have it to where I understand it too, or else we're not going to do business. Have it to where we're doing business. So that's going to be a new thing that I'm going to require. All of a sudden, we're speaking English at the table, and we want to talk about the details. Now you want to switch up and go into whatever. No, sir. Keep the language consistent, or else we're not going to do business. Let's see. I have stopped doing business with many businesses because of poor service and treatment, but it has not been a deterrent. If anything, it's been like a challenge because my thing is if the Chinese can come and set up shop and do what they need to do, why can't we from the African diaspora come and be able to set up and do what we need to do and be able to bridge this gap? Why do we have to be the ones who get frustrated and run? Why can't we stand and fight? If this is supposed to be a part of who we are, what we're doing, why? That's the thing that's why I won't quit. And that's why I'm determined to succeed. And that's why I'm determined to inspire others to succeed. That's why I'm determined to inspire those who are local to say, hey, listen, let's step up our game. I told people all the time, I said, whoever wins with customer service whoever excels with customer service is going to be the one who wins. The people who are slack with customer service will lose. So now I have businesses, like I do businesses with European companies and local companies. I tried to do all of the business with local companies, but they wanted to come at me with so much game. So much game. I was like, listen, I'm trying to bring the money to you. Why is it hard for me to get a phone call back or an email? I'm trying to put money in your hands and help a brother out. You know what I'm saying? So after a while, I said, you know what? Like in case with Potbelly, that's a locally owned establishment. Wanted to take the money there, but I said, but you know what? I'm not going to affect the experience for my clients because I'm trying to support a local business that does not respect the very thing that they say they're in business for. So I do business with Europeans. I do whoever's going to respect the resource. That's who I do business with. So we have a nice balance of local establishments as well as non-local establishments. And that's one of the reasons why our experiences work so well, because it's like, hey, but if I didn't go spend the time in these places, I wouldn't know this. I wouldn't know who was going to, disrespect it. That I've had to have very firm conversations with local management to say, listen, I'm coming here during COVID. Nobody else is coming, but we're coming and you're acting like this. Come on, y'all. This is what's happening, what's really going on. So those are a lot of conversations that I've had to have. But you know what happened? A lot of people switched up. When I broke it down to them and said, listen, you want the money, right? Well, you cannot expect people to come here with their hard-earned money and not get the level of customer service. I said, I don't care what your culture is. If you're asking people to spend their money, you might want to get to know their culture, because you're asking something of them. And if you don't do that, then they're going to go to the place that's going to respect their money, because all of this comes back to money. If your culture is, and I know some restaurants I go to, the first thing I say is, how long is this going to take? And I look at them and they say, it's going to take 30 minutes max. I say, you sure? I said, just put it on the clock. And then I'll put it on the clock. And then they'll serve me. If they get it back in time, I know to bring my people there. If they don't, can't do it. If they have excuses, boss, we don't have this, we don't have that. Okay, well, how y'all gonna have a restaurant and not have anything? How you not gonna have this or not have that? So I've had those conversations with several businesses, and they have turned that thing around. We text on WhatsApp and everything. Hey man, look, I got a group coming in. This is what we want to do. This is the deal. Boom, we get there. Everything's ready, mapped out. Boom, 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 ready to go. Because the expectation and the time has been put in. And the people at that point then begin to, it's a relationship at this point. And so it's no disrespect. It's just saying, if you want the money, we're not going to give you the money and then you disrespect us. That's not how this ball game is going to play. But again, if you're not willing to spend the time, then, it just doesn't happen like that. So those are some of the hard lessons that I've learned. I have not, the only time I lost any money is dealing with that whole Precision Air deal. Has anyone tried to scam me? Of course. But that's what I say, you got to have some street sense. And if you tread lightly, if you don't go trusting, that's one of the mistakes that many in the African diaspora make, is we trust. We trust that people are going to do what they say. And they're nice and they're kind and they're humble and all of that. You got to understand the cultures that if you give up that money, many people are not making much money. They're living from day to day to day to day. They're trying to get little bit by little bit by little bit. And if they make a mistake, they don't have any recourse. No way to compensate you back because they don't have the resources. One guy, he was trying to convince me to use his transportation company. And so I said, okay, where's your liability insurance? Oh, I don't have any liability insurance. I can't do that. I don't have liability insurance. I said, well, I can't use your company. I said, because my people are trusting that we're doing our very best to make sure that people have the insurance in the event of something happening. So you don't have it. No, I don't have it, but I can assure you nothing is going to happen. I can promise you nothing is going to happen. I'm saying you can't promise me that. That's like predicting the future. It's like you're God. You can't predict and you can't promise me what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. No, I promise you. I said, I can't use your company. I said, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. Get some insurance and then we can have a conversation. No insurance, no conversation. Those are the types of things that you got to go through and conversations you need to have on the ground. That costs money. People not willing to spend the money to do all of that. But for those who are, you can have the biggest restaurant. You can have the biggest transportation company. You can do all kinds of things if you're willing to put in the time to do it. That's the lesson in all of this. So yeah, hard lessons. Like I said, I'm going to talk about the whole African Airlines incident, put it on video, the whole Precision Air incident, the Ubuntu Cattle Ranch, all of those different incidents that happened along the way. But has it deterred me? Not at all. It inspired me. It motivated me. It pushed me to keep going and going and going and creating these experiences. Because on the other side of this, other side of the drama, is where the fortune is. Who goes somewhere expecting everything just to fall in line? Well, we do, because that's pretty much the naivete of an entrepreneur, of a new entrepreneur, expecting everything just to fall in line. And when you put a business together in the U.S. or the U.K. or whatever, in particular U.S., you got to deal with the county. You got to get permits. You got to get with contractors that move slow, or contractors mess something up and they got to go back and refix it. And that contractor might be going bankrupt. And so now you got to go into your pocket to find the money to be able to do X, Y, Z. But on the other side of the building and the construction is the residual income that comes in. It's the income that comes in because people are paying you to do the dirty work. So when they have an experience, they don't have to have the negative experience. See, it's putting all these things into perspective so that when you're going through this, your mental toughness is in place. You're able to say, all right, I got to deal with what I got to deal with. But at the end of it all, it's going to be all right. And so those are just some of the things. Like I said, just some tips. If you go to these different countries, ask them up front, how long is it going to take for my food to come? Try to give low deposits. Because they're going to want high deposits. They're going to press you for your money on the front end and not want to deliver on the back end. It'll take months to give it to you. Oh, my God. I can tell you all kinds of stories about waiting for media stuff to be delivered months afterwards because they're hustling from day to day. They already spent the money. So now just delivering the goods, so they're hustling. I got to get the money in. So, yeah. So you just got to know this stuff or else you can get your heart broke. All right, y'all. That's all I got for you right now. I hope you join us. Now you can get a chance to understand and see why people have the experience that they have. One of the reasons why they say the things that they say is because of the very simple fact that we do this on the front end, and us doing it on the front end, what it does is it makes the experience really special. And so anyway, that's the deal. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, share this, because somebody needs to know this. Somebody needs to know they're going into business. This is how you do it. With that said, though, make sure you join us on one of our Maximum Impact travel experiences. And this is what people had to say as a result of all of that hard work in Tanzania. This is the result. Ready for this? Well, hello? Where? Good to see you.
How you feeling?
Last time I saw you was in Ghana. Hello, everybody.
If we can continue to find a way to bridge our differences and, really, really, really come together, come to Africa. A lot of people really want to come here. This trip is not only a trip, but it really is an experience, and it's a learning experience. We've already learned so much just at the table. So I'm excited to be here. I'm glad to be here, and I can't wait to continue to learn and just be with all of y'all.
I quite didn't want to come to Africa, okay? And when I got here, they were so kind. And I like, oh my gracious, then I got to meet you guys, and y'all started telling me about the trip. And I said, okay, this is gonna be fun. So now I'm kind of excited. My wife said, well, you ain't got no excitement, but now I'm looking forward. So, hey, I'm hoping one day I can have the same testimony as you guys, and I'm just glad to be here.
Our second Maximum Impact experience, and I've been singing your praises, Jay, hands down. If you want to go to Africa, you got to do it with Jay. There's no other way. And to be honest with you, when Renee, Jeff, James signed up for this, I'm like, we can't let y'all go without us. And so here we are.
It's just the most interesting thing in the world to come to a place such as this. It's beautiful. I mean, this is a beautiful resort. You all seem like very wonderful people. We all have something in common. We're all connected. We all are connected.
This is my second trip with Maximum Impact. I was in Ghana July last year, and I brought my daughters with me. And they had a pretty rough experience because they had a lot of expectations that weren't realistic. But it took them 2 weeks to decompress and then to understand fully the magic that had happened on that trip.
This is my mom, Claudette, and I'm very grateful that she brought me here. This is her first trip with the group, but she's been to Africa like 3 times. And again, I'm very grateful that she brought me here.
This is my second trip, and I'm going to have a third, a fourth, and a fifth. And I tell you, I'm still excited about all the things that I'm experiencing. And you would think I've been to many countries, I traveled a lot, but I've never been to a country where people look like me. Everywhere I went, I always had to fit in. And that, was kind of traumatic for me after coming here and being received the way I was.
I'm just looking forward to the whole itinerary. It looks really, I know it's really well organized, and looking forward to the whole thing. So glad to meet everybody and look forward to meeting in person and talking.
Hi, my name is LaDanya. These are my parents, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm 21 years old, and thank you for hosting this trip and bringing us all here.
Hi, I'm Faith Benson Lettle. These are my parents. I'm from Akron as well. This is my college graduation gift.
I got 18 grandkids and 9 great-grandkids, and all of them want to come. Because I was so excited, thanks to Jay. I walked through the streets of Philadelphia lifting up Africa. You gotta go. I said, if you're Afro-American, you write that down on whatever form, you need to go to Africa.
Travel a lot, and over the last couple years, I really wanted to do a deep discovery of Africa, all the African countries, and I found Jay, and I said, that's the way I want to do it. So we were very, very appreciative.
This is my sister Linda, and the reason I'm here is because Linda spoke so highly of the trip she was on in Ghana. Coming to Africa, I liked it. Something different. You can connecting with the people here, connecting with the workers here. I like that idea and that approach. So I wanted to come and see for myself.
I remember it was November 2020 when Mr. J. Cameron visited us. It was during COVID pandemic. Imagine we have 32 rooms, but we was accommodating only one guest, who was J. Cameron. Then J. Cameron told me, I promise you I'll bring you a group. Okay. On behalf of Airport Planet Lodge, we are here to express our sincere gratitude to host you here today.
I can't imagine doing Africa without being on a Maximum Impact tour, because being with a group like this just adds so much more to it.